Chief Washakie has to be one of the most fascinating characters of all of the Plains Indians. He was both a warrior and a politician. He was called the friend of the white man, and it was around his younger years that a lot of people believe that he probably killed somebody in his own tribe and went to go live with the Shoshonean Indians. And after this point in time, he kind of built a reputation as a fierce warrior and someone who could both resolve conflict and end it in a way that was noble and brave. And it was here in March of 1866 which he met with a sort of chief, a war chief of the Crow tribe. The Crow inhabit the northern part of Wyoming and the southern part of Montana, and it was their seasonal hunting ground. But because the Shoshone had come out to this part of the country, they agreed to meet on friendly terms at the base of Crow's Heart Butte and have a duel. And it's said that Washakie won the duel, but impressed by the bravery of the chief of the Crow, he cut out his heart and either ate it right there or put it on his lance and brought it to a war dance ceremony. Chief Washakie is one of the most fascinating and overlooked figures in all of Native American history, and he claimed that he was born in 1798, which would have made him able to recognize and remember when he saw his first white man in 1811. He said he saw his first white man who was a member of the John Jacob Astor expedition of the Pacific Fur Company, because the fur trade was in its infancy, and these were the first white men going across over to find their way to the West Coast. However, by piecing together the history, the references to him, and all of this, modern historians believe he was probably born around 1808, 1809, and it is said that he was in his very young years, he was still a young warrior, he saw around southern Idaho the terms of truce go south. Two tribes had signed a sort of peace agreement, and during their sleep, one of the rival warriors broke into their tent and killed the chief. Well, Washakie grabbed his gun and fled up the Yellowstone River, and he teamed up with the Comanches, who at the time had Mexican guns, and they went on a warpath, basically trying to wipe out the tribe of Blackfeet. The Blackfeet, he considered them to be the ones who caused the terms of peace to go south, and he was just on a warpath. In fact, the first time he was mentioned by Western writers was 1840, and it was said that he was encountered by this, or at least heard of, by this Rocky Mountain fur trader, and he said that he struck fear into the hearts of the Blackfeet. He was a feared war chief, but also knew politics, because when white men came in, they were signing treaties, and these treaties went south because we didn't keep to them, but Washakie understood that the white men were going to be the greatest warriors. And when their buffalo dried up and they had no food, all of their tribal borders began moving. The Crow began seeking food elsewhere. The Lakota had to come in from the Dakota Territory, where they came in from North and South Dakota looking for food here and set up camp on the border between Montana and Wyoming, and battles raged there. And all of these people were moving around searching for what little food they could find because white men were coming in against the terms of these treaties and killing them. And they approached Chief Washakie and they said, the Lakota did, please help us fight back, push the white man out. And Washakie said, I know who the greater warrior is, I will not. And this drove a wedge between the Lakota and Washakie. In fact, 20 miles north of here, you have Crow's Heart Butte. And there was a Crow chief named Chief Big Robber. And Chief Big Robert, came back and talked to Washakie, and he said, we're starving to death. This is our historic hunting ground. Please, let us hunt here. And he said no. The terms of the treaty say this is our reservation, yours is further north, and the Crow said, we need the food. And Washakie said, you and me alone, we'll battle. We don't need to cause a war, we will have a duel. I don't want to kill any Crow, and I don't want you to kill my people, so we'll duke it out here at Crow's Heart Butte. And because of this, he won and came out on top. He killed Chief Big Robber, and it's said that he ripped his heart out, and either put it on a lance or ate it. And when asked years later, in his very later years, he said, you know, younger people do foolish things. He refused to confirm that he ate it, which was the rumor amongst his tribe. And in 1863-66, he was signing all these treaties, and these treaties were basically to make peace with these tribes, and this is what caused it all to go downhill, because as soon as they signed these 1860s treaties, that's when the buffalo became depleted. That's when people started settling all throughout the area that they promised they wouldn't settle in, and they were pushing the Native Americans out. Well, Washakie stayed on the side of the white man, and for this, he's remembered as a wise ruler and a friend of the white man. Well, they gave him his reservation, and they forced a lot of people out. In fact, the Crow Reservation is up north, and it split in half because another group of people, the Cheyenne, were moved down to Oklahoma. Well, they broke out in the 1890s, I believe the 1890s or 80s, made their way back up, and the U.S. military said, "You've earned your right to stay here," and the Crow said, "You've just cut off half our food supply." So you can see all of the intertribal warfare, and you can also see they didn't, by default, hate America. A lot of these Indian wars, they were posing with American flags because they genuinely liked the idea of the American Republic. Washakie always stood by this idea because he understood the strength of the people coming in. But he also understood that he needed to side sometimes against the Native American people as a whole and in the interests of his own people. And it's said that he never killed a white man, he refused to kill white men, and in his very old age, in the late 1800s, somebody said, "I don't think you were ever a warrior, Chief Washakie. I don't think, and if you were, I bet you couldn't do it again." And Washakie silently makes his leave, and he comes back days later with several scalps, and he's an old man at this point. It's a daring deed for even a young man. Well, he was buried, he died and was buried here in 1900, and he is seen as sort of the man who brought together the Shoshonean people. And he never fought against the whites. He actually served with the General Crook expedition, who swept across the Great Plains in the aftermath of the Battle of Little Bighorn, and he was a scout for them. In fact, there's many scouts buried through this cemetery here who might have been up on the site where they discovered the battle where Custer was killed.